Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Wednesday the 18th of April 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political news today. So to start off with, the Windrush story continues for the Prime Minister Theresa May and indeed her government. She's particularly exposed because of the nature of the story and the fact that it comes down to her role as Home Secretary between 2010 and 2016 before she became Prime Minister. Now, she yesterday, as Prime Minister, apologised to Caribbean leaders at Downing Street. This is part of they are all in town for this Commonwealth Summit that's happening this week. And it comes off the back of a report and a scoop by most of the national papers, but in The Guardian in particular, that the Home Office destroyed thousands of landing cards recording Windrush immigrants' arrival dates into the UK, which is reported to be good evidence of the right to remain for many of the Windrush migrants. These destruction of the cards took place in 2010 whilst the Conservative coalition government was in power and Theresa May was Home Secretary. Now, the government says that it was done for data protection reasons and insists the cards could not have been used to prove if someone was entitled to stay in Britain. But nonetheless, it is a story which does question the Home Office's ability to process high numbers of migrants coming to the country and high quantities of landing and departing information. And also in the post-Brexit context, what does this mean in terms of the Home Office being able to deal with a brand new immigration system where EU citizens are going to have to be regulated in a similar way to the rest of the world? Now, Guy Verhofstadt, who's the European Parliament chief Brexit representative, has got a piece in the Telegraph today saying this could be worrying for millions of EU citizens in the UK who may fear that they could face similar treatment after Brexit. Now, this story is related to the Windrush migrants, basically people who arrived at a very young age, has lived in the country and worked in the country for decades. All of a sudden, in the past few years, have been approached by the Home Office, by the government and enforcement agencies, saying that they no longer have right to remain in the UK, facing possible deportation and also facing access or limited access to public services as well. Theresa May, Prime Minister, is obviously under fire. Someone else who's also under fire is Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary, who, of course, this is her brief. She's had an absolutely very, very difficult month in the past few weeks. She's now under fire. Some from her own party as well. Some people suggesting this could be Brexiters exploiting this story in order to try and push for Amber Rudd's resignation. No reports as of yet, though, that the Home Secretary is actually going anywhere. Next up, the government faces a possible defeat on Brexit in the Lords. Now, the EU withdrawal bill is in the Lords tonight. The government's facing first defeat on a vote on the decision to pull Britain out of the customs union. So the customs union debate is back in the forefront of the House of Lords. Now, what they'll do is basically they're going to vote on an amendment put forward, backed by crossbench peer Lord John Kerr and former Tory party chairman Chris Patten. And what this amendment would do, if successful, if voted on to tag on to the bill, would force the government to, and this is in its words, outline the steps taken to negotiate a customs union as part of the framework for a future EU-UK relationship. So effectively, that would go back to the Commons to then vote on that amendment to see whether Parliament and rather the House of Commons and MPs agree that that amendment should be part of the withdrawal bill. Now, supportive peers believe that there is no majority for leaving the customs union in Parliament, and so this amendment could be successful if it is tagged on and sent back to the Commons in the summer. And May would struggle, the Prime Minister and the government would struggle to overturn the amendment when the bill went to a vote. However, obviously that's purely speculative at the moment, and we'll wait to see whether it actually is successfully tagged on in the laws later on this evening. One point you should also say is that there's a lot of focus on the wording of this amendment and whether actually, in terms of the exact specifics, it would actually be able to do much, or rather it would change much in terms of the government position. Some speculation this morning that it basically means the government has to outline its Brexit position in terms of a future trade deal, something the government has already done, and not really have to change any Brexit policy to incorporate any customs union arrangement. But something to look out for nonetheless. Finally, speaking of Brexit, Theresa May's Chief Sherpa Ollie Robbins is due to meet Michel Barnier's Deputy Sabine Weyand. They're talking across the whole Brexit spectrum, but one thing they're going to be focusing on, and one thing for the first time is being covered at this level of talks, is the EU's future relationship with the UK. So this is a big moment for Brexit in the sense of it's getting to this level and the future relationship is being discussed. But the key reports coming through today is that the Irish border is still not showing enough progress, rather any progress at all, some reports are indicating. Brussels want this sorted by the next European Council meeting at the end of June to be signed off by the EU 27. However, reports are suggesting it still is a sticking point in the Brexit negotiations, as it was always commented that it would be. Again, nothing really is coming through, but let's keep an eye out on that in the next few weeks as well. That's pretty much it for today. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and at Twitter right here. But from me and all the team here at Core London, see you again tomorrow around about 9 o'clock.